Hey guys, RC here. Welcome back. I'm going to do another video for Draft Day Sports College Football 2017. This is a new release from Wolverine Software Studios and focusing on some recruiting talk. Few things that I have learned recently or over the last few weeks or so that have really impacted how I recruit. And again, I'm still learning, but there were some things that I learned that are very important at the end of the day. So I will go through just some of the things, and then you guys can take from that what you will. I've just pulled up my tutorial league that I had set up. I think this is the same one that I had been doing previously, but let's take a look. Okay, this is the basic recruiting screen. You get to that by clicking on recruit right there, and it's now split up into two sections. You have the recruit pool, or all the high school players in the country, and one of my video viewers did pose the question, is there JUCO players in the game? And I got the answer because I hadn't noticed any, but I wasn't positive. And the answer is no, there are not. There's not transfers in the game either at present time. However, both of those are on the board as potential ads. Whether now, here's where the caveat is. I don't, I was not told whether those would be ads in this version of the game in 2017 or a future version, say, DDS College Football 2018, 2019, whatever may or may not transpire. So I don't know what the company game plan is, whether they plan on trying to do annual releases, if they may do a major, Brooks is very good at doing patches and tweaking things all the time. Is it possible, very similar to DLC, which most of you are probably familiar with. Maybe instead of doing a full release, maybe they do like a major upgrade, adding JUCO players, adding transfers, and that would be maybe sold as an upgrade as a DLC. Again, that's just guessing on my part. I have no idea, so don't quote me on anything. But I did find out that they are not in the game currently, but they are on the board of items that they are looking at, and will probably be added or potentially be added at some future point. But back to the recruiting. If you were not aware, once you sign a player and they have committed to you, of which I don't have any, okay? So let's go into the guys that I'm recruiting. So right now I'm recruiting these 5 guys, okay? I have 10 points assigned to this quarterback, 10 points assigned to this tight end, etc. At the point one of these players signs with me, then I actually lose those points permanently for the year. So you start off with a recruiting pool, and you're allowed to assign those. But when that player signs, you lose those. So you don't get those back to then turn around and recruit someone else. Now, at the end of the day, that hasn't been a big deal. And the caveat, if a player signs somewhere else, then you do get those refunded back into your pool, so you don't lose them at that point. It's only if they sign with you. And you can kind of look, I've got 50 points assigned, right? And I've got 168 points left with 16 scholarships. Well, basic math, I can assign 10 points to every scholarship player that I offer, and that would leave me 8 points that I could put on one other player, 8 other players, whatever I wanted to do. I could do 1 point on 8 players. I could do 8 points on one player. You choose, and that way you could be semi-recruiting a couple of other guys, another guy or a couple of other guys on your board. Now, here's the thing. You'll notice, and actually they added in the recruiting interest. That was something I had asked for. Thank you, Brooks, for hearing that. It makes it so much easier just to glance here and say, oh, he's got a 99 interest, than having to open and go, oh, okay, that's what it is. So I can kind of see at a glance if it's somebody I want to stay on, or, and at a 99, I'm probably not going to pull off that player. But if it was, say, a 56, I've actually signed guys with a 56 interest, but that may be a player you want to open up, see if they've got other scholarships, and start going, okay, is this somebody that I want to kind of stay on or get off, So that really helps your at a glance looking in here. I did want to hit on losing the points. So a not a cheat, that's not the word I'm looking for, but something you could do is, once you've accumulated what you think is enough points, and you just don't know, okay, so like this guy, he's got 4 other schools after him, at least 4. These are the ones that he has at least a 50 interest in showing up here. So if you see, for example, I'm just going to have to scroll through here. All right. He doesn't have anything. Nothing. What that means is he is being recruited. Somebody has points on him in the recruit category, but he is not at a 50% interest yet. So he's at a 49, a 32, a 12, whatever, with that school recruiting him. And it could be multiple schools, but the schools that he is most interested in are not on him yet. If it says none, and see if I can find one of those. There we go. There was one. All right, this one says none. What that means is there's nobody. Nobody is actively recruiting this player. So what that is entailing is assigning points in this category here. So if it shows the teams, they're recruiting and they're above 50% interest. If it shows none, then there's nobody recruiting him. And if it's blank, if it doesn't say anything, then there are teams recruiting him, but they're not at 50% interest. So that'll help you evaluate players that you're looking at to potentially go after. Okay? And then if you have somebody like this, well, Oregon's recruiting him and they're over 50% in interest. Now, we don't know where at, if they're 50, if they're 99, whatever. A couple of other things, and this is the difference between solo play and multiplayer play. In multiplayer, of course, you're playing against other human owners. You just don't know what another human owner is going to do. If you're playing against the computer is more aggressive in pulling scholarships off of players that the computer AI is not positive they're going to get. So in that regard, you may only have a 70 interest, but if you're the only team showing up, or if you're looking at these guys like that had nothing appearing, these are people that maybe you could leapfrog the computer. And then once if you get a high enough interest, the computer may pull their offer to that guy anyway. So you have to weigh that out in your decision making. Also, when we are scouting players and we're looking at these notes here in blue, these are what the player values. Even though in this case playing close to home is the most important, he still factors in, and when I say he, this computer player, the game AI will still factor everything into play. Okay, so I know, for example, we had an issue where, and this is just I think a case of all of us not understanding the nuances quite yet, but imagine, if you would, in real life, and I'm not going to use the real team names, but I'm a Michigan fan. So let's say that Michigan, in the 11th week of recruiting, goes out and starts to and tries to recruit a kid with 1 or 2 weeks left, and they've been being recruited by North Texas, just to throw a team out there. So, a MAC level team, a Conference USA team. It's possible that that player would say, hey, I've got a chance now to go to a Power 5 school. I want to go there. But it's also possible that that player says, hey, we've been doing recruiting for 3 months now, and you've never even called me. This other coach, this other team at North Texas, has done everything they could to show their commitment to me. Maybe I could play more there, where maybe I could start there, whereas if I come to Michigan, maybe I'm just on special teams, maybe I'm third string on the depth chart, whatever the case may be. And and then that's where some of these factors, playing time, are going to come into play. So even though he has some value of prestige, maybe North Texas is better for him because he could play more there. Loyalty and security, that ties in with how many weeks you've been recruiting the player and how many points you have on the player. So if we look at the recruiting, like this guy here, I've spent 80 points on him in 8 weeks, right? So if you just started recruiting that guy this week and we both export, well, I'll be up to 90 and you'll only have 10. So I would have a 9-to-1 advantage over you in loyalty and security in that category. So, what is he interested in? Well, he doesn't really care about those, but they still factor in. So if I don't know what the math is, but if you say, okay, well, this is 80%, well, he's out of where? Florida. So Florida State, Florida are going to have the advantage. Prestige, that's your conference level. Well, SEC, 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 ACC. Maybe we've got the edge on Florida State there. Market size, that's also related to, that's conference, your conference size. Prestige is your team prestige. Probably Florida State's close, Florida's close. Probably a little ahead of Auburn and South Carolina. I could go look, but so you have to factor all that in. So it may be that these 17 and 16% things, while they don't look important, at the end of the day, when they're all lumped together and the computer makes its decision, that could be what swings him in your favor if you've got 80 points and the other team has 40 points or 20 points or whatever the case may be. So you also have to factor in what week are you getting onto these players, how many other people are on that player, do they have a big lead on you? So like would I want to get in on this guy? Well, probably, because he's the number one player in the country. But Oregon's got him sewn up basically because everybody else has pulled off. And it would have to depend on his interest level. And then he's also out of California. Is he going to want to come cross country to play for LSU when he could play for Oregon right there on the West Coast? So those are some other things to think about when you're analyzing these blue bars, and you have to scout them in order to get that. Actually, that's from your interview. When you are recruiting, they have this tab up here for view position counts. It's not laid out in the best way, but it gives you what you need to know. So you have your current players. So like right now, I have 4 players on my team at quarterback. You need a minimum of 3, so I don't need any. And next year I will have 3, so only one of these are going to graduate. So I'll have 3. I need a minimum of 3, so I don't need any. So the only position I'm going to be short at next year, I'm going to have 5 linebackers, but you need a minimum of 6 because that covers both your inside and your outside linebackers. So I'm short 1 player. Well, basically what you can do, and also you don't want to get too top heavy at a position, is you want to make sure that you have offers out at every position to cover, or if you, let's say towards the end of recruiting, you're like, okay, well, I've signed a bunch of players. I've got, out of my 21 scholarships, I've signed 17, and I've got 4 left. I've lost them all because they've signed elsewhere. I've got to go find some more guys. What position? Do I want to go after the highest ranked guy? Well, what happens if he's at a position where you've already gotten 3 commitments that season? Do you need a 4th commitment at that position, or do you have a position that has that you haven't signed anybody, and maybe that is the position you want to look at? You may not get as good a player, but it'll still be signing a position that you need. So use that positional count as well. If you like this split screen, that's great. You can always scroll down the side. Once you've got them onto your board, then you can only look at your targets by clicking targets, and that left list now comes out here, and you can see 8 at a time, and then you'll have a scroll bar here that you can scroll down as you add to that list. You can further narrow that down by those that you have scholarship offers to. You can look at those that have committed to you. The other thing is, let's say, for example, I'm going to click on this guy. All right, now I have no interest. He has no interest in me right now. Okay, I'm going to add him. I want to look at not recruiting, and there he is. Okay, now just adding him to my board, he has a 16 interest. I'm going to put 10 points on him. Now we see he's jumped up to a 79 interest. So we've actually gotten a pretty good indicator of his interest level by adding him in and putting points on him. Now we have not run the week. We have not simmed out the week yet. So we can always change this now. All right, well, maybe I think 79, yeah, it's pretty good, but and I'm over 50%, so you see I got added to his list. And these teams are not in order. This is not a guarantee of the interest a player has in your program. It could say LSU and Oregon. In fact, if I come back to it, it might. So that can change easily, and that means absolutely nothing except that they're over 50% and they're recruiting him actively. So I have to decide, do I still want to do that? Well, if I do, I leave it there. I offer him, I schedule an interview, I do whatever I need to do, and then I run the week. If I say, hey, I really don't think I can compete because I've got 0 on him, and Oregon's probably got 80 on him like I have on these other guys. Well, you take all your points off, you clear out all your stuff, and you hide him. All right, so he's on our board, But now if we go to our recruiting, that strong safety is not on here because he's hidden. He's taken off the board. He actually goes into the hidden category. Or if we select all, or if we forgot to remove the scholarship offer, he would show up here. But any of the screens that we're working off of, he's not there at all. So that's one way you can kind of look at players and get a feel for, you know, whether or not you should go after them or not. And I think that's really about it. I really wanted to focus on the 10 points. I did try a season where I wanted more players on my board, so I went with like 5 points each, and I had double the players, and I ended up with a horrible recruiting season. Well, the whole reason is, even if you have players interested in you, if other teams are after them and they're spending 10 points to your 5, well, they're up 10-5 after week 1. They're up 20-10 after week 2, 30-15 after week 3, 80-40 after week 8, you know. So you're basically putting yourself in a hole. So if you're going to recruit a player, you typically always want to go with 10 points, always. The only exception would be, as I said, I'll have 8 extra points, which won't be enough to get 10, but I could, you know, at least put a solid number on there, and then, you know, I'm building up those points. Now here's the thing: if you see somebody else jump on that player and you think they're going to blow you out of the water, pull those points off, revoke your scholarship, hide him, and move on to somebody else. Especially if you're a smaller program going after a player that bigger programs are after. And that brings me to the last thing I want to cover. Yeah, because I'm getting pretty close to my time limit on the video, and it's longer than I thought it would be, so I apologize. But when you first come in, you can do this drop down and look at your recommended targets. Okay? Now, all of these guys that I'm currently after were recommended targets as well. So my top guy is number 4 in the country. Now, that doesn't mean these are the only guys that you can recruit. Okay? What that tells you is this gives you kind of your ceiling, and you can go above that, but you don't want to go much above that. Now, it's kind of hard to just, you know, at a 4, yes, I can recruit the number 1, the number 2, the number 3 player as well. If my top guy was, for example, number 256, if that's my top guy instead of number 4, if my top guy here is 256, well, then maybe I can get up into the 230 range, maybe the 220s. I'm probably not going to get anybody in the top 200. I'm certainly not going to get anybody in the top 100. That would just be a waste of time. And also, if you're a smaller school, then you may want to sort by distance and try to recruit close to home, and then make that your main focus, and try to get everybody close to home for you. If there's any, you know, now again, I'm looking at Louisiana here. So 256, if I'm at 256, well, maybe 236 I could go after. 158 I'm not. 152 certainly not. And 23, he'd probably laugh at me. Now again, these are the guys within 100 miles. All right. So we basically got one guy above 256 that we can try to go after. All right. Well, let's go ahead and recruit him, and then we'll expand it out to 200 miles. Well, I don't add anybody because I've still only got that 236. Okay. Now I've got a guy at 344 maybe I want to do, but let's go out to 300 miles. All right. Same thing. You know, well, we have 262, so maybe we add that guy. So you can kind of work your way out from that central location. Okay, now we get 500 miles. Now it's getting a little further, so if we run into a guy that wants to play close to home, once we get over 300 miles, then you kind of lose that factor, because he's not in your hometown. He's probably not in your state unless you're in Texas. But don't forget, when you're looking at distance, let's say the kid's in Houston. He's going to be closer to Lafayette or Baton Rouge than he is to El Paso or California. Okay, mileage wise and distance wise. So you would have, even though maybe UTEP would be recruiting him, and you're recruiting him, say in Lafayette with Louisiana Lafayette, similar prestige schools maybe, but you're going to actually be closer, even though he's in the same state as UTEP. So it's by actual distance, even if it's across state lines. So keep that in mind as well. I think that's enough. I think that's some things that I have learned here in the last couple of weeks. I hope that helps you in your recruiting with the game. And again, once I've tried some of these, putting some of these into place, much easier recruiting against the computer, I will admit. But and I'm looking forward already to the next recruiting season in my online league to kind of get back to some of this stuff rather than the things that I tried last year, which were an abject failure. And that was trying to do something other than 10 points. So keep that in mind. I think the 10 points is your biggest thing you have to remember. And then trying to figure out who to go after. Thanks for checking out the video. Definitely check out the game. It's certainly growing on me. I am enjoying it. In fact, in my online league, I've actually taken a second team. I'm playing with LSU as my primary team, and I've taken Louisiana Lafayette as my secondary team. Of course, SEC and Sun Belt, two completely different levels of talent. So, I'm going to be going after 4 and 5 star and the top end 3-star players. The Cajuns, they're going to probably be lucky to get, if they find a 3-star, it'll be probably lower down in the tier, in the 800, 900 range, what have you. So anyway, hope that helps. Thanks for checking out the video, and we will talk to you later. Bye.